Okay, everyone, we are just about done with the evolution unit. So we are going to do activity 100 over the next couple of days, and I'm going to need you to use your notebook today to set up and get ready. Remember, you can pause the video as you go when you need to write or take notes. Okay, so activity 100 is called DNA, the evidence within. And the challenge that you should be able to determine by the end of the day on Thursday is to be able to tell me, how does DNA provide evidence about how animals are related? So I have said a few times that the best evidence that scientists have to prove evolutionary relationships is DNA. And so we're going to start looking into how that is. Why is that a thing? Okay, so there are two vocabulary words. They're on the next slide, and they're long, and don't be mad. But classification is defined as the process of grouping similar organisms based on similarities in form and structure, physiology, and genetic information. So form and structure is what we've been doing with fossils and looking at how animals are put together. Physiology is kind of how animals work. So how they breathe, how they process food, how their digestive system works, that's their physiology. And then genetic information would be your DNA. Now, we looked at classification earlier on in the semester when we did the ecology unit, and we read those letters about those animals. I don't know if you remember, we filled out the chart and you tried to determine if they were mammals or reptiles or amphibians, etc. So we've touched on classification a little bit already. And then DNA, we talked about in the classroom when we had started this unit. So I want you to know what DNA stands for. Do you see I highlighted it in yellow? And a lot of times in class, kids don't write it down. So DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's a big word, but you're going to use it a lot in school. So it's really good for you to learn it now. Not necessarily how to spell it correctly, but you should know what the letters mean. So if you remember, when we talked about DNA, its definition is the genetic material located inside the nucleus of cells that contains the information for cell growth, cell division, and cell function. And like I said, we've talked about that in the classroom, but it's been so long now. If you remember, I showed you that one video, the Think Clearly video about DNA, and I will attach it here. You don't have to watch it, but if you want to refresh your memory on DNA, I am going to put it in the classroom with this video so that you can look at it if you want. Okay, so here in class, we would turn to page 51 and read the introduction, and I'm going to read it to you. So once you are ready, go ahead and move on to the next slide. And this is what your book would say. So scientists use evidence such as similarities in skeletal structures and other physical traits to investigate evolutionary relationships. Thanks to advances in genetics and biotechnology, scientists studying evolution can now also use the genetic material itself. Each cell in an organism contains the genetic information needed to perform all of its functions, such as obtaining energy, moving, and getting rid of wastes. You may already know that the genetic information is located in DNA in the chromosomes found in every cell. DNA is made up of 4 chemicals whose names are abbreviated as A, T, G, and C. These chemicals are strung together like beads on a string. Differences in their order result in different messages. Think of these chemicals as letters in an alphabet. There are only 26 letters in the English alphabet, but there are millions of words. In a similar way, DNA contains millions of biological messages. The more similar the DNA, the more similar the messages used to run the organism. So what does that mean? Okay, so the more similar two organisms' DNA is, the more similar their instruction manual is. And so if they have the same instructions, they're going to look pretty similarly. So animals who are closely related have DNA that is very, very similar. Okay? All right, so what are we going to do with that? Here's the scenario. So you are an evolutionary biologist investigating relationships among different species. when a geneticist you work with offers to provide you with DNA samples from various animals. You do some background research. You find out that the samples are from a gene that is similar in all vertebrates. This means you can easily use them to compare species of vertebrates. Okay, so you are going to get some DNA samples tomorrow, and we're going to compare them. And to do that, we're going to need to record our answers in a chart. So for the rest of today, all I really want you to do is make that chart so that you're ready to go on Tuesday. Okay, so in your notebooks, first of all, make sure you give it this heading, the number of differences between DNA sequences. And then you are going to make a chart, and you're just going to write numbers in the chart, so you don't have to make the boxes very big. But you want 5 columns and 5 rows, okay? And then we are going to use dog DNA, whale DNA, horse DNA, and then reptile DNA. And notice those are written down on this side as well, on the left-hand side. I wrote the number 5 in the first box, and I'll show you why tomorrow, why we did that. It's an example. And then these boxes that are red that have an X in them, we're not going to use those boxes. So you can shade them in or put an X in them, however you want to do it, but we are not going to write in those 6 boxes. So all I want you to do today, honestly, is make sure your notebook is set up. Make sure you have this chart ready to go. If you want to go back and watch the DNA video, you can, just to refresh. And then we will pick up there tomorrow. Okay, guys, I hope you had a great weekend, and I will see you, well, not really see you, but I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day.